Hey, Travels with Dottie here, and this is part two of Outlaws, Bums, they call them bummers, and Vigilantes in the Eagle Nest area. And part one, which I'm going to link up here because it'd be best to watch part one first. Part two is kind of the field trip part where we're going to hop in the car and I'm actually going to show you how to get to the old ghost town, Elizabethtown. I'm going to show you how to get there. And then Jack and the rest of the crowd from this morning are going to meet us out there. And Jack's going to tell us all the fascinating things about the history of Elizabethtown and more general things about the area, mining, mountains, legends, history. It's a pretty neat thing, and I think you're going to enjoy it. And if you missed it, if you missed the first part or didn't pay attention, why is this on my RV channel? Well, because if you're going to be a full-time RVer and you fall in love with places like I do, like I've fallen in love with Eagle Nest, New Mexico, I fell in love with Quartzsite, Arizona, Pahrump, Nevada, and most recently Artesia, New Mexico. Um, when you want to spend a lot of time in these places that you discover, it's pretty exciting to be able to understand the history. It makes it more fun, more exciting. You drive around, you see things, you go, hey, I know what that is. I know what that building is. I know what happened there. I know what happened on that mountain. It's pretty exciting stuff. So I think you'll enjoy it. And here we go. So our first stop is going to be Elizabethtown, and for those of you that are going to be in the area and you want to do this yourself, I am going to show you how to get there. We're right in the middle of Eagle Nest, and we're headed towards Angel Fire. We got Cimarron to our back. So, and we're going to make a right up here by the Valero, which is New Mexico Route 38, which goes to Red River. And it's going to be a 2 or 3 miles up on your left. And there's no sign or anything, so it's a little hard to spot. It's one of the reasons I really wanted to show you this, so you can navigate here on your own. There's the Cowboy Cafe. I'm hoping that opens someday again. It's been closed for, I think, a number of years. And Red River's 18 miles from here. Cuesta is 31 miles. You've seen videos of me doing this trip. And this is actually part of the famous Enchanted Circle. So we go up, if we were going to do the full circle, this is how we do it. We'd go up here, we'd go through Red River, go through Cuesta, and then on through Cuesta all the way into Taos, New Mexico. And then we would go over another mountain pass and come out over by Angel Fire, and we pass through Angel Fire and we'd be right back here where we started in Eagle Nest. That is in fact the Enchanted Circle. We're not going to go all the way through the pass here. We're going to be hitting Elizabethtown before we get there, but between here and Red River is called Bobcat Pass, and it's over 9,000 feet in elevation. And it's a spectacular drive, as many of you have seen on my prior videos. I hope you guys enjoyed part one, where Jack walked us through some amazing history of bums, outlaws, and vigilantes that are part of this area here. And I can't emphasize enough, if you're going to adopt this lifestyle, and you do it anything like I do, where I have my favorite areas that I'd like to stay for me months at a time, um, and I like to know everything I can find out about the communities, and understanding the history really embeds you in the community. It makes you feel a part of things, and that's one of the reasons I'm publishing these videos. Now, Elizabethtown, um, there's really just not much left. What you're going to see are modern, some by comparison's sake, modern homesteads on private property that are part of Elizabethtown that aren't directly these homes are not part of the history that Jack talked about in part one. But there's well, I know for sure we'll be visiting a graveyard that's part of the original Elizabethtown, and there is the bones of that hotel that Jack mentioned that I think was erected in 1901, and all that's left is a few stone walls, but it's pretty obvious. And of course, when we get there, Jack will be pointing out other things of interest. And actually, if you put Elizabethtown, New Mexico, in Google Maps, it knows where it is, and it'll get you there. We have another beautiful day going. It's July 2nd, 2025. The day started off very foggy. From my camp, I could not see the lake. And I'm sure that if you're watching me on a big screen TV here, you're not bored. You've got this beautiful drive to entertain you. These gorgeous green hills and forests. We're getting pretty close now. Just kind of around a big bend in the road here. And when we hit the straightaway, I can see in my Garmin Elizabethtown Road off to the left. So we hit this curve here. After you navigate this curve, it's pretty close on the left-hand side. Quarter of a mile or so, I would guess. And here we are on the straightaway, and it's coming up pretty quickly. You'll see that lead car. We're in a caravan here. That lead car will make a left. You see it. You might be able to see him signaling. I'm not sure, but it's right up here. You see this little drive on the right, kind of a loop. That's a sign that the turn is coming up here. It's not well marked. You can go through this little gate here. Don't worry, it's not private. But you can see these homes on the right and left are in fact private. You don't want to trespass. Again, as I mentioned, several homes here. And when you get to these red dumpsters, you're going to want to make a right. And this is going to bring us to the cemetery. And one of the markers here is you'll see an angel with a horn that says cemetery on right in front of us there. See that little angel? And as you can see, just about, this is not a four-wheel drive situation here. Any vehicle can make it up here. Just drive slow. There's another angel marker here. So you don't go left, is going to be private property. You want to follow the angels. And this is the cemetery. And I'm going to shut this off, and I'll shut it back on when I walk up there and get near Jack.
And it comes down in a V. Do you see how that comes down in a V? The brown spot comes down in a V. It's not vegetated. Just below that, there's a mine called the Deep Tunnel Mine. Two Irish brothers with a limitless supply of whiskey, apparently. One started on this side, one started on the other side, and they bored, looking for the mother lode, bore through that mountain. And they never did find a mother lode, but they were able to keep themselves fed and in whiskey. So
They finally met in the middle, or not?
yeah, they did, and they were not very far off, according to the story. But you know how they are. Miners are bigger liars than fishermen. So these roads that you see are a lot of the roads that were part of that all that mining. And before we look behind us, you can see some of the roads over here on the right as well. When you leave here, as you're going down this area here where it narrows down, we call the Narrows. On the left-hand side, going south, just above the existing road, you'll see a trace. That's the original wagon road and stagecoach road here. And so when they were carrying supplies into the mines, they took that road because they didn't want to lose elevation. Where the Comanche Creek Brewery is, we passed it on the left. Just this side of it, if they were coming to Elizabethtown, they dropped down onto the bottom and then ran a road up here. But if they were carrying supplies up there, they stayed as high as they could to deliver those supplies. And I'll point out where the roads were over here as well. So if It's from Elizabeth's house. If you go straight up to where the timberline and lower end of the timberline is and come out to the left, you'll see there's several roads in there. That's where the big ditch came. The big ditch started over on top, behind that mountain behind us, and picked up water from the upper Red River and ran it 42 miles through all those flumes and aqueducts and brought it into some ponds over here. And those, that's where they would make their hydraulic hose connections. We're going to have a visitor here. I don't know who this is. But I'm going to go greet him. Hang on. Yeah. Well, we're not having a visitor. Apparently, we look menacing enough that they just passed us. So, not quite sure what they're doing there, but no, I haven't seen before. So the big ditch runs all that way and over in here. So most of the gold fields were in here, but there were other mines scattered all the way out in that direction. So, by the way, this ranch here is part of the western half of the Central Moots Ranch, if that makes any sense. And then from Elizabeth's house, basically, to the north on that side of the road is owned by Sandia Pueblo as tribal recreation lands. They purchased nearly 13,000 acres of what was the Moreno Ranch on the East Moreno Ranch. And that runs all the way back to the Valle Vidal unit of the Carson National Forest. If you've never been to the Valle Vidal unit, I would encourage you to go. The best way to see that, if you're interested, start early in the morning, 5 miles east of Cimarron. There's a turnoff. And if you start in the morning, the sun's going to be at your back all the way through, and it'll bring you out after 72 miles. It will bring you out at Costilla, New Mexico, on the Colorado line. You make a left-hand turn, you come back down south. But it's beautiful back in there. It's like a piece of Yellowstone that's been ripped up and set down in northern New Mexico. Home to one of the largest single elk herds in the state, which runs back and forth across the state line between there and Colorado as well. 5 miles east of Cimarron on 64. There'll be a sign. It'll say Valle Vidal Unit, Carson National Forest, 21 miles. And just follow that road.
Some of that owned by Ted Turner?
We're going to go through some of Ted Turner's land, by the way. So while we're talking about that, Ted Turner owns, in that direction, 558,000 acres in the Vermejo Park Ranch. All but 5,000 of that's in conservation easement, so it'll never be developed. And ultimately, that will probably come to the public in some form or another after his kids are gone. He also owns 500,000 acres at Truth or Consequences. West is the Ladder Ranch, which is 250,000 acres, and east that runs all the way over to where the Trinity site is, where they dropped the bomb experimental bomb in 45, is the Armendaris Ranch. So he owns 3% of the state. He's not the largest landowner in the United States. John C. Malone from Liberty Communications, read TCI Cablevision, owns about 100,000 acres more than Ted. So that's Sandia Ranch now. But as you go up here, the road that makes a swing around to go up to the top of Bobcat Pass, which is the highest paved road in the state of New Mexico, by the way. That west half of what was the Moreno Ranch was scheduled to be developed into like 5-acre ranchettes. Guy named Stan Hubbard, read DirecTV, kind of like a similar guy to Ted Turner, owned a ranch down in American Creek at the south end of the lake. He bought that to keep it from being developed. Stan's dead now, but his son owns runs one of the stations in in Albuquerque, and that's their ranch now, but it was kept from being overdeveloped. So
You can't get, there's no.
you can't get up there, no, not unless you're real fast. So what just kind of just general things. We winter 6,000 to 8,000 elk in this valley. That's from the top of Bobcat Pass all the way to the south to Laguna Negra, Black Lake. We winter, my first incarnation, I was a wildlife manager for 12 years. And I lived in Jackson Hole, Wyoming. Since the wolves have been introduced up there, we are wintering more elk here than they are in the National Elk Refuge in Jackson Hole, Wyoming. They're wintering anywhere from 5,000 to 7,000. So, and we don't have winter kill. They have to artificially feed them up there too. So, so the advantage we have here is that we're further south. And also we have large private land holdings in these ranches that are part of the original land grants here. So if the elk get pushed too hard on public land, they just cross the fence and thumb their nose at you and say, So, but we have a lot of elk, we have a lot of bear, we have a lot of mountain lions. They just trapped 3 of them that were hanging around the high school down in Cimarron here in the last month. They killed a deer and had it stashed down there. So you don't see them very often. I spent a lot of time outdoors, and I've seen only 4 of them in the flesh alive. They're the same size, by the way. A big mountain lion tom will be over 200 pounds. The females are smaller, but they're the same size as an African leopard, just to give you an idea. So fortunately for us, they're not as aggressive. And for those who might be interested, we have jaguars in the state as well. Down in the Boot Hill, it's been 25 years ago that they were first spotted down there. So they are there. They're coming up from Sonora and Chihuahua into the Boot Hill in southeastern Arizona. The last jaguar in this state was killed in 1935 in the Canadian River Canyon just east of Springer. Yep. Used to be big grizzly territory as well. The last grizzly killed in northern part of the state was over at the headwaters of the Rio Chiquita, which is down near the Valle Escondido, if you know where that is, down on the way down to Taos. A sow and 2 cubs. They killed the sow. One of the cubs got away, and then they captured one of the cubs, and that went to the National Zoo. But the last grizzly killed in this state was killed down in the Gila.
What year was that?
1919 for here. For down there, I think it was 1935 or 1934. It was in the 30s, I know. So there was a lot of mining activity here, but it's either feast or famine in the extractive industries, no matter what they are. In the West, that's the story. Boom or bust, boom or bust, boom or bust. Placer mining, hydraulic mining. On the way where we made the turn to come off the main street, that little stream there called Moreno Creek was dammed, and we put a dredge on there called the Eleanor. We talked about that down there. So she dredged gold for 4 or 5 years.
The tailings on the mines are not accessible, is that right?
What's that?
The tailings from the mines are not accessible to the public?
They're not. No, we pass a lot of tailings on the way up here. As you get down, did you see the ranch gate with all the antlers on it? Just this side of it and just the other side of it, you'll see tailings in there from a hydraulic mining.
And that's private land?
That's private, yep. There are mines, obviously, scattered throughout on public land as well, but they're not as easily accessible. Any questions about the mining aspects here?
So the gold just played out, is that?
There's gold here now. The problem with the gold now is it's what's called flour gold. It's very, very minute specks, and the environmental laws and the amount of disruption that would have to take place in order to mine it economically don't exist. So, but the museum had mining claims through a guy named Jerry Becker, who was on our board. We had mining claims over in Red River, and we mine gold. We used to take people over and mine gold. We proved that two different claims. So those have lapsed because Jerry's moved to Texas, and but we haven't had that. But there's still gold here. But generally, what you'll find is, so it's flour gold, and then the next size up is called a picker, which means you can pick it, and then above that's a nugget. Nuggets are rare. Pickers you'll see every once in a while, but mostly it's flour gold. And how they extracted the flour gold is they would drop mercury in a pan and it amalgamated with the steel, or with the gold, excuse me, and then they'd burn that off and it'd have pure gold. Of course, we don't use mercury for that. But I was in 7th grade. I used to have silver hands. This before we knew what was going on there. So
that explains it.
That explains it. Yep. Well, it explains a lot of things, actually. So
The Outlaws buried here.
Charles Kennedy's buried here.
Kennedy's buried
Down here on the left. And you know, a couple of us had come up. We found the grave and reset the headboard. Somebody stole it. So yeah.
It's just the body, not the head, right?
Yeah, just the body, not the head. Supposedly, the head was sent to the Smithsonian because he had some kind of deformity. I call the Smithsonian. That's a BS story. So, you know, that never happened. But, you know, we have a lot of wealth of information available at our fingertips on the internet now. And so research is much easier to do. The state historian, a guy named Ralph Twitchell, wrote a 2-volume history of this state. And generally, it's pretty authoritative. But knowing what we know now, looking and reading that again, you know, there's a lot of stuff that was misstated or misinformed. So let's walk up to the hill. Hey, I just want to point out this stuff right here, this gray silver, is Artemisia frigida, or fringed sage. Just pick it and smell it. It really smells good. We also have a large tooth sagebrush tridentata, and down near the museum as well. And the purple flowers we saw on the way up are Platte River penstemon.
Great view from up here.
It is. You can really see the layout of the town. So, you folks want to come up this way?
What was the name of that hotel? You can see
the Moose Hotel.
You can see the bones.
That's the Moose Ranch. Yeah. Yeah. So, this is all that remains of E-Town. And given that there's no high-rise buildings, there's no way in hell there were 5,000 to 7,000 people here. However, the roads ran this way, north to south, and east to west. The stone ruins you see here in front of you are what remain of the Moose Hotel. And that was built, if my dates are correct, in 1903, had a billiard hall attached to it. Just down slope to the left is Freilich's store, which is the oldest standing building here. There are, behind the trees here, there's an original miner's cabin there as well. And there have been, some of the ruins have been taken out of here. I'm not sure what's going on with the ownership of the lots here, but they are private land. So, but anything that you see that's dirt can be driven. That's the old church, a reconstruction of the old church here. It was a Catholic church. Most of the miners here were Irish Catholic, and then combined with native New Mexico, Mexicanos who were primarily Catholic as well. That was called St. Bridget's when it was here. And then when the Eagle Nest Dam was built, people started to move down that way for economic reasons. And the church, St. Mel's, was built in roughly 1932. And the original bell from St. Bridget's was taken down to St. Mel's, and along with another bell that was donated by Herman Moots, who built the Moots Hotel and owned all this land. There are 2 bells down there. So, and that's the oldest Catholic church in the valley here. This valley, by the way, was not frequented very often by New Mexicans until gold was discovered. So, because it gets bloody cold here. I've had, and this is on a very accurate Fisher Scientific little weather station I have. About 10 years ago, we had minus 47.6. And, but it's not uncommon in the winter here to get into, minus 25, minus 30, sometimes minus 35. Our winters can be pretty intense and very cold, but they're not very long. As far as snow is concerned, one of the reasons we winter so many elk here is that the highest point in the state is over here, along with another, it's called the Wheeler Peak Massif. There's a bunch of 12,000-foot peaks over there. And if storms come in from the west, they dump on the west side over at Taos Ski Valley. If the storms break north, they dump on Red River Ski Valley. If they break to the south, they hit Angel Fire. And those of us living in Eagle Nest call it the blue hole. We can look up and it's blue skies like this. It's snowing all around us. The only time we get any significant snow is when it comes in off the Gulf of Mexico and blows up through the Cimarron Range. It takes a very powerful storm to do that. We'll get snow then. But, we get so much sunshine, and the humidity was like 19% this morning. So as soon as the sun comes out, it sublimates up into the atmosphere. So, but those are, if you see this, the lower of the 2 roads here, that road originally went straight along the edge of that bluff. And the other road, if you're going up the Goldfield, stayed high. So, but there were dozens of buildings here. Bars, pharmacies, all sorts of stuff. So, highest point in the state, Wheeler Peak. Can't see it from here. What we're looking at up here right now is what's called the Taos Cone, and that blocks the view of Wheeler. Most of the rain that falls there flows south and then west. And there's alpine lakes up there, Star Lake and Blue Lake. And in Taos Pueblo, myth, they originated and came from the underworld out of Blue Lake, and that became the headwaters, that Star Lake of Rio Pueblo to Taos, which splits Taos Pueblo. If you haven't been to Taos Pueblo, I'd strongly recommend it. It's a UNESCO World Heritage Site. And if you haven't been to the Rio Grande Gorge, by all means go. The Rio Grande Gorge is not an eroded gorge. It is 2 tectonic plates that are separating. It's one of 4 rift valleys on Earth of its type. If there's any geologists here, correct me if I'm misstating anything.
Right.
Okay. All right. And it's about 800 and plus feet deep at its deepest. And we have a significant bighorn sheep population in that canyon. They suffer from domestic livestock diseases, and there's very little conflict down there. So we have a sizable bighorn sheep herd up there. That's Wheeler Peak Wilderness, by the way, surrounded by a lot of the Taos Pueblo land. If you drive from Red River to Cuesta, very often when you get down to that old mine site, you'll see bighorn sheep down there as well. But out at the bridge, you'll see them. And then I came up from Santa Fe day before yesterday, and there were 4 bighorn rams right at Velarde, which is just north of Espanola. So, so this is where the train robbery, the second one, was planned here. And if you went over that mountain, you'd get over into Ute Park. I short-circuited the trip to Ute Park because the number of cars we have, it would have been like an indoor fly swatting convention down there. However, if you go that way and you want to see those buildings, I showed you pictures of them. If you get down to Pine Ridge Store, is a stone store on the right. If you're headed towards the next road to the left is Ute Creek Road. If you make a left and go up there, you'll see those buildings. You'll see McBride Store, and you'll see the granary, which there's no windows in it today, which is what led me to believe, as I did my research, that had to be where they finally put Sam Ketchum.
So the miners lived up here in the wintertime when it was so cold, right? And so what about their food? I mean,
Well, I don't know where they went in the wintertime, but most of this stuff you can't, if you're placer mining, it's frozen.
Yeah.
So you were probably down here drinking a lot. So, and a lot of times they go to lower elevations, but until the water started to flow, if you're a placer mining, you weren't doing anything. So, but the real money in all these mining towns was mining the miners. Yep. So, yep. And we had in that, I didn't tell you this, but in that, I showed that 1870 census, they have occupations in there: gambler, sporting lady. So lots of euphemisms for
Lawyer.
that.
Let's not forget lawyer.
And lawyer,
One
yeah,
lawyer.
yeah. Yep. But you can see, this is the Cimarron Range, which is a sub-range of the Sangre de Cristos, by the way. So these are the Sangre de Cristos, which is blood of Christ in Spanish. The Rocky Mountains officially start in the Yukon Territory in Canada. And my understanding, the geologic end of them is, even though the mountains continue, the geologic end of the Rockies is at Glorieta Pass in Santa Fe. This is the longest single sub-range in the Rockies. It's 252 miles long. It runs from Poncha Pass down to Glorieta Pass. And of the top 100 peaks in the Rockies, not the Sierras, in the Rockies, 6 of them are in that range, by the way. And those peaks are higher than anything in Montana, anything in Idaho, anything in Wyoming, anything in Utah, and anything in all the Canadian Rockies combined. But because they're so much further north, their timber lines are much lower, so it's a lot more rock and ice that you see up there. If you look, you can see we're getting some forest damage over here now. The brown spots you see are tussock moth, which are knocking off our our white fir, which is Abies concolor. And if you drive Cimarron Canyon, you'll really see it. There's areas down there where it's just devastated. And those trees aren't going to come back. So, any questions of me?
Now, in Elizabethtown, it's about 2 or 3 times the size of Eagle Nest now, right?
Yeah. Yeah, it may have been, by 1870, the population may have abated a little bit, but I don't think so, because Lambert didn't get rid of his hotel here until 1872. So the handwriting might have been on the wall. And of course, they knew that there was going to be a train coming somewhere down that way as well. But gold was mined on and off by various methods here up through World War II. It could have been a deep mine, or could have been a hard rock mine like the Klondike, which wasn't particularly profitable, I don't think. But, yeah. So, but, you take a look at the lake and the dam. It was built by the CS Ranch so that they could sell farmland downstream, and there's less acreage being irrigated now than there was 20 years ago, and surely a lot less than there was 50 years ago. So, but it is the basis of our tourism for sure. So, the unintended consequences. We have a very, very small watershed, though. That's why the lake suffers. We're at about an average pool right now, by the way. Oh.
Jack, this road that's right here in front of us,
Uh-huh.
does it lead anywhere?
That road's gated over there. so far as I know, that was a public road. And unless the people who bought this ranch from North Carolina petitioned the county to abandon it, it still is. But with the gate, and you never know. I don't know whether it's public or not, but it used to be. You could drive back in there. One of the most beautiful settings for a ranch you could ever imagine, back in that little hidden valley. And it runs right up against the Wheeler Peak Wilderness and Taos Pueblo. So, well, if there's no other questions, you can speak with the dead here if you want. There's still people being buried here as well. So, I want to thank you for your time. I appreciate it very much, supporting the museum, and we'll hope to see you around again. I've got a couple more programs I'm working on. One of them is the Taos Society of Artists, which will be a little more of a jaunt than a field trip. So, all right, thanks much. Appreciate it, folks. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So this is a little bit of a bonus that I did. I went into the cemetery and pretty much walked around the whole thing. They're really not famous names you're going to recognize in here, or at least I couldn't find any. So what I thought I would just take the footage and speed it up for you, just so you got to see it. It'd be a shame to come all the way up here and not see anything. I guess if you're really interested in specific grave sites, I think you can go into YouTube and you can slow it down and take a look. But I thought this was a nice little compromise to give you a little something. Well, I want to thank you for joining me for part 2 of Villains, Bums, and Vigilantes. Or I think maybe it was Bums, Vigilantes, and Outlaws. Yeah, that's what the title was. But anyway, it was these 2 videos, part 1 and part 2, were, to me, an exciting part of the local history here in Eagle Nest. And I hope you enjoyed watching it as much as I enjoyed filming it. It's just so much fun. And there's another one tomorrow, a whole different adventure on, we're going to meet back here, do a lecture, and then go on site to the Eagle Nest Dam. Why is that a big deal? Because there's no access to it for regular people. You can't get there. It's totally restricted. But the museum here is licensed by the state to be able to take people to the dam and conduct tours. It's the whole reason why Eagle Nest Lake in the little town exists. It's the Eagle Nest Dam. That's going to be tomorrow. And it'll be a few days before you see it, but I'm going to do it tomorrow. Take care, and thanks for watching my stuff. I appreciate it.